The clues that make me think I need to put a radiator in, most obvious, is that I keep losing coolant out of the reservoir. So let's check the radiator. Not low in the radiator yet, but that's why we want to keep the reservoir, the reserve, as it were, filled. Typically, what I run into on Hondas is when you get, a zillion billion miles on one of these things, this seam here starts to leak between your plastic cap and your aluminum core. I guess this gasket starts to break down. The other day I saw some moisture along this and kind of dripping down, and I think that's what's happening. So if your Honda is getting into the 200,000 or 300,000 mile range, you might want to go ahead and change that radiator at some point as just a preventative measure. I've had a bunch of Hondas over the years, and this will be the third time I've experienced this failure. That Odyssey right there started losing coolant, and it took me a couple days to figure it out, but yeah, it was just that seam leaking. There's a gasket in there that fails and starts to leak. I bought the new radiator from Rock Auto. It lists for less than $100. I think with shipping it was about $130, something like that. And as cheap as that is, and that's cheap, it's probably good to just go ahead and replace it as a preventative measure, because if you don't maintain your cooling system on your car will let you down. I promise. So I've ordered the radiator, but it's not here yet. It'll be here in a couple of days. And in the interim, what I'm going to do is just maintain this. You can use this little hose here as kind of a dipstick. If this thing's wet, then that means you haven't sucked all of the coolant out and your radiator has not run dry yet. But it is getting low, so I'm going to go ahead and top it off. When these leaks start, they tend to be pretty slow at first. So if you pay attention to your coolant level, you should be able to keep up with it. But don't press your luck. Go ahead and order that radiator. Get it coming to your house so you can swap it out. That should get me through today. My radiator should be here tomorrow. My dog's going bananas. Well, it's tomorrow, kids. The FedEx guy just dropped off the radiator. Stopped by AutoZone and got me a new bucket. How about that? I always get a little nervous when ordering radiators through the mail because, well, it's not hard to damage them, and they tend to show up looking like this. This one's kind of concave, the box, so let's open it up and take a look, make sure it's in good shape. Looks decent, looks good. I don't see any damage to the fins or anything weird. What's that all about? Weird little cut there, but it's not going through into the coolant passage, so that's good. Well, I think I got everything I need to do this job. Got some more antifreeze, but the antifreeze that's in there is pretty new, so I want to try and save as much of that as I can, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Because I've been having to fill this thing so much, I just so happen to have an empty antifreeze bottle. We're going to make this into a catch pan. I don't gut myself like a fish. The ultimate in recycling. There's our new catch pan that'll fit underneath the car, unlike the bucket. That drain, I'm going to go take the radiator cap off. That way we're not pulling a suction on this, and that'll let it drain a little quicker. Now that all the coolant's out of the system, I want to go ahead and pull this radiator. And I want to start by telling you this. I don't know how to change this radiator. I've never changed this radiator before. I've never done this job before, but that's not going to stop me. Because what I have is confidence that I can get it done, that it's not a terribly difficult job. And I have some experience because I have changed the radiator on that car and another Honda and a Toyota and a Chevy Nova. Once you've done one, the rest of them are going to be fairly similar. There's probably going to be something different, but we'll figure that out when we get there, and we'll figure it out and we'll accomplish it. Don't let the fact that you've never done it keep you from doing it, because the only way you're ever going to learn how to do it is to do it. See? Start by taking this plastic piece out. I think that's the place to start. And these Honda pins, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I guess, hold this in. So let's pull those 5 out. I'm going to use this thing because I like it and it works really well for this. Try to save these. You might break a few. If you do break a few, you can go to your parts place and buy some more. Uh-oh, I dropped one. That one broke. Sometimes they just crumble apart as you take them out. I'm also going to tell you that my wife is sick and tired of looking at that pile of junk. And now that the fashion show is behind us, I need to get the Honda going right so I can haul all this crap to dump. Or I'm going to get in trouble. That comes off pretty easy. Those 5 pins, and it comes right out. So now that we got that cover off, we can take a look and see that this is the original radiator. I think it's been leaking. I think that shiny bit down there is evidence that that seam is starting to fail. I think I can pull these 2 bolts, take that bracket out, pull these 2 bolts, take that bracket out, unbolt these fans, and pull this radiator straight out. I unhook the hoses. Let's find out, because I'm seeing people pull like the whole front clip and the core support and all this crazy stuff to get that out, and I don't know that it's necessary. It may be. I may be completely wrong, and we may have to do that. Let's find out. The reservoir bottle does bolt into the radiator with 1 bolt, so we're going to pull that. Let's unhook the hose from the radiator. That, pull the reservoir out. I'd like to run that through the dishwasher, but I think my wife would kill me. Now there's a couple of bolts that hold the fan to the radiator. Two bolts hold that out. Unplug that fan. All right, that fan is disconnected. Let's try the second fan. And that fan is loose. Push those all the way together and they'll clip themselves on that little notch, and then you just push it back off the spot that you're clamping it to, and we break that loose. It should be ready to go. Boink. That's all. All right, the top end is completely disconnected, and that took about 10 minutes. So let's go underneath and unhook the hose on the bottom, and there should be a temp sensor, and that's probably all that's down there. So far, this is everything I've used to pull this, right? A pick, a deep well socket, a shallow socket, and my pliers. That's it. Should be 4 bolts holding these 2 brackets on, 2 on each side. Round it off a little bit. I'm gonna have to get a 6-point. The 6-point will grab the fastener better, but sometimes the 12-point is the only thing that'll fit in there to get it. So the 12-point is something I tend to use maybe too much. We'll go with the 6-point and see if that gets this bolt out, because it's kind of rounded. Let's go ahead and break it loose first. Yep, 6-point got it. See that little bit of rounding on that bolt? That was causing the 12-point to slip, but the 6-point can grab it. Bracket. Looks like that. It's got a rubber bushing in it. Make sure you've got this rubber bushing in there, otherwise your radiator is going to flop around. If it's rotten, you should probably get another one. This one looks decent. I'm surprised, frankly. But yeah, it looks good. Will this come out of here? Well, it's looking like I am at the very least going to have to take these 4 bolts out so that I can push this back and get enough room to pull it out. Alright, that's getting us there, but it also looks like these 3 bolts that hold the hood latch on need to come loose. Actually, that won't get us anywhere. There's 1 bolt in the bottom of this core support, way down there, that I need to pull. The last bolt should be this one, which is coming off of that core support. It's a big T. Think of it like a big T. Should have got that when I was down here getting hoses, but I was trying to do it without taking out the core support. Not the smartest way to do it, I think. Best to loosen that up. Alright, yeah, that gets us all kinds of room. So it's got a plug on it over here. So there's the main fan. There's the other fan. Now the radiator will come out. Whoops, hold on the wiring. Let's not yank that out. There we go. Old. Ooh, look at that. Here's the stuff I've been talking about. This seam fails and starts to leak. It's been leaking all down the radiator, you can see. Things that we're gonna have to switch over to the new radiator is this sensor and these rubber pads on the bottom. Ooh, that one's even kind of been installed improperly. Nice. So I think we'll have to reuse these. Ugh. So let's go ahead and pull those. Tools are all rusty from that job I did in the rain. That was a fun video if you got to catch it. This is interesting. I thought this radiator was gray because the top piece of it is so grayed out. It's actually black. There's our temp sensor we're going to reuse. There's that. Point this out. Comes with a new pitcock valve, so we'll keep that. These right here, these 2 fittings are for if you have an automatic transmission. You'd put your transmission line hookups on these 2. I don't have an automatic transmission. All right, I think that's all I need to take off before I stick this back in the car. Take this pile of junk and send it on its way. Want to be careful not to crease these fins or punch any holes in the new radiator. That would be lame. All right. Oops, I forgot these. Better put them in now. There's that. Let's make sure it's seated in there properly. I'm gonna go ahead and hook this hose up from right here because it's easy to get to right now. And I'm gonna have that clamp where I can get to it from the bottom. Looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and hook up anything I can think of right now. This is our temp sensor. Hook that up. There's that. Pull on that, make sure it's actually secured in there. There's 2 of these pins on the bottom of this fan, and they plug into these 2 tabs down here. Hopefully you can see all that. Work this one in first. Pretty straightforward stuff here. But you do have to make sure you actually get it in the hole. That's what Sarah said. These line up perfectly. I saw some reviews about this radiator online that said that there were fit issues. So far, I'm not seeing any, but if I do, I'll let you know. I'll let you know, because I'm that kind of guy. I will call a guy out if he's selling me parts that don't fit. Don't go crazy tightening these. This stuff's only plastic. You will break the crap out of stuff if you over tighten it. Go ahead and plug in the plug. Put in the other fan. So be sure that little nipple goes in that hole down there. Don't make this dirty. I didn't make it dirty. You made it dirty. Dirty-minded freaks. And again, there's only 2 bolts that hold this fan in, and they're both on the top. All of these bolts are the same. They're all 10mm. Go ahead and hook this plug up for the fan. Otherwise, we will overheat even with a new radiator. Oh, there it is, my hose clamp. A lot of people will swap these factory clamps out for the more traditional, you know, that you got to tighten up with a wrench. I don't like those. If I can get a hold of these, I'd rather have these. That's how you reset that. You just stick a screwdriver in that hole and pry it down, and it goes pop. It pops right back on. That hose feels decent. This would also have been a great time to swap out the thermostat, which is right there at the end of my screwdriver. But I don't have a thermostat on me right now, and I just didn't feel like messing with it right now. So maybe one of these days we'll swap the hoses and the thermostat. That'll be a different video. Let's go ahead and put this core support back together. And I'm hoping that you notice that it's not necessary to pull this entire core support. All you gotta do is take the bolts out, shove it back a little bit, and that'll give you all the room you need to do what you need to do. Next we'll do these things. They appear to be identical, so it doesn't matter which one goes right and which one goes left. Again, slides down over the little tab, and then your 2 bolts go in. Very, very easy. All right, so there's that core support. Let's make sure this drain is closed. It is. Got our hose hooked back up. I want to check this little gizmo that holds this wiring in place. I like to have that where it goes. Be sure you hit the notch down there. Otherwise, it'll be flopping around all over the place. That's that. Hook up the reservoir hose. So now the only thing left in the bucket is the pitcock, which we're not going to reuse, and the plastic tabs that hold that cover on. But before I install that, I'm going to go ahead and fill this thing up with fluid and fire it up and heat it up. That way I can look for leaks, because it's a lot easier to see all this stuff with it disassembled. This radiator actually cost more than the DENSO unit that was available at Rock Auto. This thing was about 130 bucks, and the DENSO one was less than 100 bucks. choose accordingly. Common mistake made after doing a job like this, after opening the cooling system, is to fail to get all the air out of the system. Try and use up all these little jugs, partial jugs of coolant I've got laying around. The thing that you want to do is fill this up till it won't hold anymore, and then fill the reservoir up till it won't, well, till it's at max. Then you want to start the car, let it warm all the way up, and turn the heater on, because your heater core has coolant in it. And if you've had the system open long enough, it's possible for that coolant to just drain out. And if it drains out, you've got an air pocket in your system. And that can cause all kinds of bad problems. I think that's just about topped off there. So let's go ahead and fill up the reservoir, which has still got coolant in it, but is a little low. I'm gonna fire that up. I'll put the cap back on and let her heat up. This shouldn't take long. These little Hondas heat up quick. Woo! What are you barking at? Yeah, you said that already. Your air's getting warm. You can kind of pump some of the air out by squeezing these hoses a little bit. I'm fairly certain that this radiator is the original Honda part. And I'm just going to tell you that I believe, after some experience with Hondas over the years, that if you've got more than 200,000 miles on your Honda, you probably should look into changing your radiator. And I'm telling you right now that Rock Auto sells a DENSO radiator that is an exact replacement for your car for less than $100. So give yourself $100, a 10mm wrench, a screwdriver, a pair of pliers, and 2 hours, and you'll have this changed, and you will feel like you've accomplished something. And you may save yourself such fun things as a blown head gasket or freezing to death in the snow in the wintertime. Hey, if we're gonna be dramatic, let's be dramatic. So that's it for this episode of This Old Radiator. First time I ever swapped a radiator, I think I was 16 years old. I bought a 1970 Chevy Nova here in Nashville and tried to drive it home to Fort Lauderdale, where I lived at the time. And the radiator exploded somewhere in South Georgia, and I had to pull into a gas station and dig through their dumpster to find some sort of jug that would hold water. And I filled it up, and I drove a little ways, and then I filled the radiator up, and drove a little ways, and filled the radiator up, and I did this all the way home to Fort Lauderdale. And when I got there, I had to buy a radiator that I really couldn't afford and install it. And that was the first radiator job I ever did. Since then, I've done a bunch. So I'm telling you from experience that if you've never changed a radiator before, you can change a radiator. Just think it through. The most important things are be very careful with your new radiator, because you can destroy it putting it in. So handle it with care and take your time and use a bucket so you know when you're done. Look for leaks. Remember to burp the system. I've got the rest of that antifreeze sitting in here in the back of the Element, because I'm sure that there's air in that system, and I'm gonna have to top it off at least one time. All you need to do this job is time, tools, confidence, and experience. And experience is something you're only gonna get if you've got the first three. Once you start doing these a time or two, your confidence will build, and you'll be able to tackle this stuff. You can do this, I promise. See you next week.